everybody and welcome back to my channel. So firstly, I apologise for the mess. My studio is in utter chaos at the moment. But today I wanted to talk to you about sewing with jersey fabrics and stretch fabrics and how to make a cute pair of baby leggings. Now this is a free pattern I found online. There's a lot out there, so I just download a free pattern online just to get the shape. And the waistband I did, this is like a 0 to 3 months pattern. So the waistband I cut at 15 by 4 inches and the cuffs I cut 6 by 4. So they're just like a yoga waistband legging. There's no elastic in them or anything, it's just relying on the jersey. But basically today I wanted to go through how I make things with jersey and a few tips and tricks. Now I am very new to sewing with jersey, but I do really love it. I've had a few problems in the past with sewing with stretch fabrics. One video you may remember me talking about that. But I honestly have to tell you that the more you sew with them, the easier it gets. And I know, you know, practice makes perfect, but I promise you that is the case, especially with jerseys. They can seem really overwhelming and really daunting to sew with at first, but I promise you, if you just don't worry too much about what you're doing. Everyone's always going on about like, oh, be careful, be careful, be careful. Like you've got to sew it really carefully. It's got to be neat. You can stretch the seams all out of line. But I promise you, there are ways to make it a whole lot easier. And I hope this video teaches you a few things. And if you have any questions, please comment below and I'll do my best to answer them. So let's get on with making some baby leggings. Right, so the first thing we're going to talk about is the actual jersey itself. So this is some cotton jersey fabric I got from myfabrics.co.uk, and it is a printed jersey, so we know which is the right side and which is the wrong side. Now, if you've got a plain coloured jersey, it can be hard to tell which side is which, but in general, if I just get a plain jersey here, I have this plain lemony yellow. When you get rolling on the seam edge like this, this happens a lot with jerseys, and apparently, I don't know if this is true every single time, but the direction it rolls towards is the wrong side, which means that would be the right side. So because it's rolling that way, that's pointing towards the wrong side, so that would be the right side. And also I look at it at the weave of the detail in the actual jersey itself, and you won't know what I mean if I show you right now on camera. But one will be slightly neater and have a better finish than the other. And that's, if I'm really unsure, that's what I look at as well. I don't know if you can tell, but in fact you will not be able to tell, but this side is slightly less neat than this side, and this one has a slightly better colour to it, so this would be the right side of the fabric. But anyway, the piece I'm going to be using today is this piece of printed jersey. I've already cut out one legging piece, but if I just flip this over, because for some reason I always cut things on the wrong side. So with jersey, I tend to not cut out 2 at a time. So because it's stretchy and it can move around all over the place, when you're cutting pattern pieces, I would just do it 1 piece at a time. Now this does take longer, but I promise you, with all the movement in the fabric, it's much easier to do it this way. So the pattern piece I've got for the leggings is just a free pattern I got online. There's a lot of baby legging patterns out there, so I'm sure you will have no trouble in finding one. So I've folded it over to the design I want, and this is my pattern weights, everyone. I would recommend weighing down your pattern pieces rather than pinning them, because again, when you pin things, the fabric moves underneath. So I generally find that this is the easiest way to do it. And my best friend when cutting jersey, this boy, my rotary cutter, this just means that you can fluidly cut and you're not moving the fabric too much underneath. So cutting out any stretch fabrics, your rotary cutter will be your best friend. So I'm just going to cut out one piece like this, and then remember that if you're cutting double, especially when it's something like this, you've got to then flip that over to cut it again, because obviously this is one way, but when we join them together we want them to be opposite, so that the pattern is obviously going to be on the outside. So just make sure when you're cutting out pattern pieces one at a time to always make sure you do it one at a time, and double check which side you're cutting, because you don't want to do cutting and then realise that you cut it out the wrong way. Okay, so now I've got 2 pieces cut out. Just to make sure I've got it right, this one should be the opposite to that one. Perfect. Brilliant. So some people spray their jersey fabric with like a starch before to make it stiffer to cut out. Now, I have to tell you, honestly, I have never ever done that. I've never needed to, and I mean, obviously I'm not an expert on jersey and jersey fabrics, but I've found that I've never needed to. I've just sort of made do, and that's probably maybe not the attitude you want to hear, but I've never had a problem, so I've never tried it. But if you want it to be stiffer, if you find that your jersey might be stretchier than mine, if it's thinner and it's just like moving all over the place, then probably try a starch spray or something like that, so that it, you know, or a stiffener, just so that you can cut it out easy. So now I've got these 2 pieces, I just need to cut out 2 more cuff pieces. So when it comes to cutting straight lines, I've cut my waistband out here. I find straight lines to be a lot easier because you can cut them almost like you would do paper cutting. So I cut them with like a ruler and my rotary cutter. So I'm just going to measure out my 2 cuffs with this extremely old ruler. I'm sure I'll get, don't know if I'll get both out of here, but we'll see. Yes, I use pencils. I apologise if you don't like that, but I've always done it. Bad habits. So, all I do here is that I would line my ruler up against my markers, get my rotary cutter, just cut away. Easy. I mean, my rotary blade does need changing, not gonna lie. There's one. Can I do that again? Oh, it's just too short. Oh my god, what have I done? Okay, so there I have my 2 leg pieces, my waistband, and my 2 cuffs, and I've done an edgy 1 green cuff because I ran out of my teddy bears, but never mind, doesn't matter. So next we're going to do some sewing. Now I'm just going to show you the difference on these two cuffs with a different type of foot on your machine. Right, I'm really sorry for the bad lighting because it's a very dreary day today. But I just wanted to show you the options on my machine. So I generally use my overlocker to sew all my jersey items. But I just wanted to show you, if you don't have an overlocker, which ones you use and some tips on using your machine. So the first thing I'd look for is zigzags. Now on mine I do have like a stretch seam stitch that looks like a tiny angled zigzag. That's what I would use if I had that button. If not, you can just use your normal zigzag or your zigzag stretch stitch. Either of those would be perfectly fine to use on sewing stretch fabrics. I would test out a little bit on a scrap piece first and make sure you're happy with the size of the zigzags. If I was doing like top stitching things on show, I know it sounds stupid, but look for like, change your settings for a square zigzag. So I'd have the width 2mm and the length 2mm, just so it looks slightly neater. But for seams, I would use something maybe like a 2.5 with a 1.5 stitch length apart, just so that there's more holding it in. But that's just my preference. I'd have an experiment on a piece first and then see how you go. But I'm just going to show you what this stitch is like showing the cuffs with my normal foot on, and then I'm going to show you what it's like with a different foot that you may want to get. Okay, so I'm just going to line it to the edge there, and then we'll see how we go. So the important thing to remember when you're sewing stretch fabrics or jersey is not to pull, push or stretch the fabric as you sew. Let the machine do it for you. So I'm just going to line this up here. Now this pattern actually has a really small seam allowance, so I'm going like quite close to the edge. See how my machine just takes it from me? I don't need to worry about it. All you have to worry about is keeping it flat. And I have put a couple of pins in there anyway, just to keep it together. But this just comes from practice, I promise you, but do let your machine do the work for you. So that's what a really neat stretch stitch line looks like. And this stitch means that you can still pull along that seam and it still stretches with the fabric. If you just did a normal straight stitch, you'd worry about the stitches tearing or ripping as you wear and use the fabric. Now, some patterns that I have seen when I've been making baby clothes do use straight stitches for top stitching, and they are always on seams or places where there is no movement in the garment whatsoever. So if you are sewing any jersey at all, always use a zigzag or a stretch stitch where you can. Also, the needles I use on my machine are these jersey needles or ballpoint needles. You will find that it is much easier to sew with jersey needles rather than the normal ones or universal ones. But if you are like me and you're a bit skeptical, try them out first and then you'll see why it makes a difference. Other needles that you can use when sewing jersey is a double needle like this. Now you'd use this for doing top stitching, so stitches that are going to be on show. This top will have 2 lines of straight stitches. Yes, you use a straight stitch with one of these, but it's because underneath the bobbin threads almost overlap and zigzag underneath, so there's still room for stretch. So that's where the magic happens. Now, I haven't had the best experiences with using a twin needle. I'm not sure why. I think I definitely need more practice with them. I've tried it a few times and I've hated the results, but I honestly do think that that's just me not having enough practice and me not knowing what I'm doing. But you may find that you'll want one in your stash for future products when you get into sewing jersey, so make sure you add this to your shopping list. Okay, so that's the end of part 1 of my sewing with jersey video. I hope everything's made sense so far and you've noted a few things down that you now need to get. Please don't be overwhelmed by it all. Part 2 will be out in a couple of days. If you have any questions of anything so far, please comment below and I will do my best to answer them. And yes, we'll see you in a few days for the next video, and then we can finish those adorable baby leggings. So give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it and you're looking forward to the next one. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in a few days. Happy handmade!